Hello, welcome to TechWebDots. Today I am going to discuss what Docker container is. And this session is part of the Docker for Beginner series. Previously I have already explained what Docker is and why we need Docker. Okay, so to understand in detail what Docker container is, so there are few things that you need to understand about the containerization, because now we are understanding a container. So software containerization is an operating system virtualization that we have seen, which is also available with the hypervisor. It is a method that used to deploy and run containers without using a virtual machine. So how the container architecture looks like, basically you have your infrastructure in the bottom line. On top of it you have your host operating system. It can be Windows, it can be Linux, and on top of it you have your Docker engine, right? And top of Docker engine you add your application, or you install your application that you wanted to use, right? But there are more inner components that we will be understanding in our upcoming session. So containers can run on physical hardware, in the cloud, or on VM as well, and across multiple operating systems, right? So it doesn't matter what operating system is. So it really depends what your container needs, so that libraries we can have it on the Docker as a required libraries, and we can run our application very easily. Container is a group of processes runs in isolation, and all processes must be able to run on the shared kernel. Shared kernel is something which is a core part of our operating system, which really help us to running the containers. And these all run in the isolation. It means no one is interacting with the other container processes. Each container has its own set of namespaces. Namespaces you can consider a logical block in which we specify these application resources will be exist in the namespace. So these are easy to find when we are actually dealing with containers management. Also contains its PID, which is process ID, the user or the user group who is using it, and the IPC, the internal process communication. And there is one important section which is control group. In short, we call it C groups, which controls the limit and the monitoring of resources that containers can use when the application is running on it, right? So they can manage that. So a container, in other words, we can say, is a loosely isolated environment that allow us to build and run software packages, and which is actually the instance of an image, right? So far you understand, okay, the container is on which we have run our application, but now the terms here is image. Now you must be thinking what image is. Image is something which is our blueprint, and container is something which is following the blueprint and getting created. Let's understand how to create images and how to create and run the containers. Okay, so this is how the overall process looks like. First, we will be having a Docker file. We will understand better after a few moments. Then it will convert into Docker image, and then from Docker image we can easily run the Docker container. This is how the whole process look like. So once we have the Docker file, which is nothing but having the commands or the layer commands which used to create the Docker image. So if you see in this command, we are writing docker build command -t. Counter image is the image name that we wanted to give. -f, we are saying the Docker file will be available. Dot, we are saying, means it is saying we are talking about the directory where we have our file. The moment you run this command, a Docker image will be created. Now the next step will be how to run the container from this Docker image. So for that you have to run one command, docker run. So docker run is a combination of two command, creating container and also run the container. Okay, so docker run -it means interactive, and -rm means it will remove the container once we stop the container, and then we are giving the image name from which we wanted to run the container. Okay, this is all the summary how the overall process works, right? So very important part in this overall process is to start how to write the Docker file. right? And which is very important. So we'll discuss about the Docker file in our next section. Thanks for watching.